Hey everyone, it's Paul with another Tuesday video. I'm actually traveling, so I've recorded this on Friday when Bitcoin is starting to really go on the move. On the move. So for today, I'm going to follow up on actually a video that did really well that I'm going to reference in a second. So today, it's supposed to be like top arrow. I actually failed art in school. Don't tell anybody. But nonetheless, I can do these by myself and makes the point. Truthfully, these are as much notes for me as for you. But 5 sort of top best Bitcoin bets right now, given what is unfolding with Bitcoin. Before I do that, usual investment disclaimer, which is that this video, any content material from my company, ATG Digital Media, is not investment advice. It is opinion, information, engagement, entertainment, whatever else you wish it to be. Past performance is not equal to future results. Errors, mistakes, oversights always happen because we're human beings and things like that. Yeah, that's human. Capital loss is a likely outcome. In other words, you're not guaranteed a profit for following along for anything that we put out in our content. Markets have risk in it, and loss is the outcome when you get things wrong. The owners, contractors, employees, associates of ATG Digital Media, we own, trade, transact in the investments that are mentioned in this video and also in any of our content, Substack, Twitter, our updates. I don't know, it's like sometimes maybe on LinkedIn and Instagram. All right, so I mentioned that our best performing video of 2023, yeah, it was March of this year, was a video said 3 triple X bets on Bitcoin, and that has like 56,000 views. And in it, I laid out my thesis for owning Bitcoin through different ways. One was through Coinbase. That was because Coinbase is the really like almost a monopoly really in the US in terms of a crypto exchange, asset management company, trading, all of the above. And there was all this FUD about like Binance and Coinbase back then. And so that was one of the picks. Then there was the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. This is the largest kind of like pseudo ETF, which is currently trading for a 35% discount relative to the Bitcoin that is sitting in the trust itself. And finally was MicroStrategy, which is Michael Saylor's theoretically software company, but essentially it's become like a gigantic treasure chest of Bitcoin. I can't remember how many Bitcoin he owns, but it's in my previous video. You can Google for it. It's not hard to find. He owns a lot of Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin's going to go up to anything like what I think it's going to go up to, MicroStrategy is going to be one of the largest companies in the world, far larger than it is today. So what is going on with Bitcoin? So I made a video about this last weekend, and I'm just going to quickly summarize what I said last weekend. In my opinion, the deal is this thing called halvings to other people, but online people seem to call it halvings. But somebody says you don't pronounce the V, but I pronounce it. It happens every 4 years. I had one in 2012, one in 2016, one in 2020. But technically, it's not actually years. It's 210,000 sort of like algorithmic blocks. So that's when like the halving occurs. And the essence of the halving, at least for us that own Bitcoin, is essentially creates like a supply crunch or a short squeeze. In other words, there's just simply not enough Bitcoin to go around relative to everybody that wants to own it at that point. But the actual technical element of the halving that creates that is that the reward for mining Bitcoin goes down by half from like 6.25 to 3.125. And that's scheduled to happen in April of 2024. So going through some analysis, and if you want the details, check my previous video from last week. I'm not going to do that all over again. But essentially, what I have found is that halvings drive price action. In 2016 and 2020, the bottom for Bitcoin happened about 18 months before the halving. It wasn't exactly 18 months. I think it was like 16 and a half in one, 17 another, but approximately 18 months, basic rule of thumb. And then the top seems to happen, about 18 months after the halving. So it's like a very clear kind of like segmentation to the price action, which in my opinion, in my judgment, the halving is the critical factor. In other words, after it sees a peak, the market like is really focused on all the negativity around price, around the bottom. And then the folks who really, really know what's going on, they understand the halving is going to create the supply crunch, short squeeze, and they buy somewhere near the lows, creating like almost like an even bigger scarcity. Like I said, check out the video from last week. Before I go on to the 5 picks around Bitcoin, this one is mentioned that this is an ad for ATG Digital Media. That's the actual website, atgdigital.media. We have paid subscriptions starting at $9.99. We cover the general themes of innovation and growth through stock and crypto. We do picks in both stock and crypto, market updates, strategy updates, commentary, and you want to test it out and see what it's like. We have a free Substack where we write about our ideas, we write about the strategy, we write about the commentary, and that is at paulmanfilly.substack.com, which you can check out, please. All right, so again, summarizing my last video, if you go back to the price action from previous halvings, this is, well, let me get the 2016 before I get the 2020. The 2016 halving. Bottom happens in January of 2021 at $158. Wow. That was a long time ago. And then at the halving itself in July 2016, $670. And then in December 2017, everyone remembers that. That was the first really big, massive move in Bitcoin, $19,870. So from bottom to top, that was like 125x move, 12,475%. Absolutely, absolutely massive. Then we go to 2020. And then the bottom of the 2020 halving is in December of, that should be 2018. The top, the halving date was May of 2020. By then it was $8,637. And then the top was fairly recently, November 2021, $68,978. Bottom to top, 22x. So what could possibly happen in the 2024 halving? Well, the bottom, going based on this kind of choreography, bottom then was on November 2022 at 15,480. The halving date is approximately going to be in April of 2024. I rounded some sort of based on the last 2 halvings and said, well, at the halving date, what's the potential price state? The prices, well, 38,700 at 150% higher. It was 300% at 61,920. What about the top? Well, that's going to be based on demand and supply, in my judgment. And in my opinion, the reason why the last halving increase was fairly modest relative to the 2016 is that we had this big push of people buy in 2017. And that's caused that big rip. I mean, for it to be up 125 times, that's a big rip. So of course, on the next round, there's not quite as much demand, but now we've sort of sat in that 20,000 range. I mean, we went back all the way down to 15,480 at the low for this halving. In other words, a lot of the people that bought at 19,000, that range, and they got out. And in the meantime, Bitcoin is bigger, more widely known. All the reasons for all of that are in my previous video, but hey, the range for the potential top using 2016 and 2020, and this is not a guarantee, not really a prediction. Well, it's a range, is 340,560 at 22 times, or at 125 times, 1,935,000. Yeah, 1,935,000 if it were to go up the same way that it did in 2016. What's likely to happen? Can't tell you for sure, but I can say that, in my opinion, it's going to be something bigger than 22 times for the reason that I said, which is that I believe the 2017 top absorbed a lot of demand. So into the next peak around the 2020 halving, there just wasn't quite as much demand. But since then, we've gone through so much FUD. I mean, FTX and all the scandal stuff on Luna and all that stuff. Like, a lot of people have gotten out of Bitcoin. So into a next move, you will see a lot more money come in. And once it really starts to push towards that high of 69.70 or $100,000, everyone that wanted to buy in is going to be in. So I don't know, could it do 1.9 million? I'm not going to go that far, but I'm going to say I think it's going to be higher than 22 times, which means 340,000 might be the next peak, sort of like like a target to kind of go at. All right, so very basic. Why Bitcoin? Well, hey, 20 million coins, 19.4 mined so far, so very few left to be mined. Scarcity is the critical factor here, and then supply and demand. It's just 1.59 million coins left. So another critical factor that's between 2017 and now is that 53% of coins are essentially just sitting there doing nothing. And that's been for like multiple years. And with each year, there's just more and more and more Bitcoin that is being what? Hodled. Yeah, hold them. Yeah. Anyway, so you could obviously, I mean, one of the 5 bets you could make on Bitcoin right now is just to, hey, just go buy Bitcoin. I mean, for that, you'd have to have a Coinbase account. You could also, buy it through, I think, a Venmo, Cash App. There's a lot of places where you can buy, straight up Bitcoin, no big deal. And hey, so far in 2023, Bitcoin's up 87%. And since the video that I made, it got 56,000 views. Obviously, that was a big deal. So just bringing this up, which is, Bitcoin 3x, that's up 28%. In that video, which is from March 14th, I mentioned GBTC because of this huge discount. At the time, it was nearly 50%. It's come down to 35%. So GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, still a good deal. In other words, it's still like 35% off the price of Bitcoin relative to what is sitting in that trust. So if Bitcoin went up and that discount kind of like got bridged, you'd make an extra 35%. I mean, that's not a small amount. It's not a small amount. It's a lot of money. The next one is MicroStrategy. I mentioned that in my video from March 14th. MicroStrategy is up 131% and up 47% since I made that video. GBTC, I forgot to mention, is up 124% in 2023, up 47% up since I made that video. What's the base for MicroStrategy? Well, there's no other company in the world that has accumulated and essentially bet their entire economic financial life on Bitcoin. And you want that, essentially, someone that's built a gigantic treasure chest with Bitcoin. Well, and you think that, people would be like, damn, I can't buy into Bitcoin, but I can buy into MicroStrategy stocks, whatever, its prices right now, it's a smaller number than Bitcoin, and you can own one share, at least for now. Let's see what happens. But it's very unique, it's very different. And into a Bitcoin surge, whatever, let's say, 300,000, 340,000, I mean, 600,000. Heck, if we got to 1 million, what would MicroStrategy stock be? Be worth a lot. It's definitely trading below all the value of the Bitcoin at its current price, and relative to the future, yeah, I mean, it's obviously incredibly low. Then you could buy, the most established business based on crypto and Bitcoin, which is Coinbase. Coinbase hasn't really done anything since my video, but it's up 70% this year. And their position in the crypto sort of financial space has only gotten better. So many of their competitors have gone out of business. They have continued to be the gold standard for all kinds of things in crypto. So Coinbase, still a good bet, in my opinion, in my judgment. Throwing one last one in there, which is in the 5 bets, which would be like these crypto mining companies got just destroyed, utterly destroyed in 2021 and 2022. But they're still there. And they're still mining Bitcoin, and Marathon Digital, which is in one of it's actually in our diamond portfolio at ATG Digital, 268% this year. Yeah, this year up 268%. Um, and the cycle is just beginning. The nature of Bitcoin mining is a little bit like gold, which is that um, when prices are low, it sucks for them because they're selling Bitcoin to pay their bills. But as Bitcoin prices go up, they have to sell less and less to pay their bills. So they're starting to hold more Bitcoin. That makes them worth more because now it's sitting sort of like cash. And I just actually did a review of Marathon Digital, and I think they've got like in excess of $200 million worth of Bitcoin sitting at the corporate level for them. So that's the video for this week. 5 top Bitcoin bets right now, because if I am right, this 2024 halving is in play right now. My analysis research says 18 months prior is the bottom, and then we have a substantial rise into the halving. Fair warning, though, it's not going to be a straight line. Watch the previous video, because in the 2020 halving, we had the COVID crash in between where it went from 10,000 to 3,500. So not a straight line, but nonetheless, because the halving pull is so strong, like even you go back to March of 2020, the next month it starts going back up. So, not a guarantee there's going to be a straight line, just that it does look like the halving bull run is now going on. And that means that on average, companies, instruments that are based on Bitcoin and crypto setting up to go higher, All right. Thanks for watching this video. Come back next week for another one. This is Paul saying bye.